We are live. Welcome to those of you who just got the notification that the B2B Distributors Maximize Your Website and E-commerce webinar is going live. We will go ahead and get our lovely faces on screen here in just a minute, but we'll give everyone a chance to get settled. I know we have a few folks joining us from LinkedIn and a few that got the email, so you'll be joining us from YouTube. So welcome to everyone. And we'll just give it another minute or so. Let's see if I could get some hold music on here. That's like a fun little feature that they have now with StreamYard. So enjoy this music for about a minute here until we all go live and you'll get to see us. Okay. So for those, we still got the whole.
I was wondering if you were going to keep that music on.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Great new addition, Victoria. Great new addition.
Yeah, so much.
The whole music was really excited to stay there for this webinar. So welcome, everyone. I just wanted to quickly introduce, we have John, VP of Products, and Jeremy, Strategy with HawkSearch here, and they are going to be walking through, we have the B2B Distributors, Maximize Your Website and E-commerce webinar here. So I'm going to let you two introduce yourself and then walk through this webinar. It'll be about 45 minutes or so. And if anyone has any questions, please go ahead and drop it in the comments and we will be sure to address them. All right, guys.
Thanks, Victoria. Hey, John, welcome.
Hey, Jeremy.
Thanks for taking time to talk today. I'm excited to be talking with you. So hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar. We're super excited. John is our EVP of product and strategy, and I'm really excited to have him on today so we can talk about websites and e-commerce, specifically as it relates to B2B distributors. We work with a lot of B2B distributors, and there's a lot of unique challenges and unique opportunities that we get to work on with our customers because they're B2B distributors. And of course, everybody, you all know, I mean, your product catalogs are large and complex, and HawkSearch is a solution that works well in that space. So now, John, we're representing both coasts this morning. Well, this afternoon and this morning. You're representing New York, and I'm representing California here.
And I have the beautiful blue sky here, and you have hail there. So I
don't know
hail
what's going on
in the world, but something
that happens sometimes in California. It gets just cold enough, but when it hits the ground, it immediately melts because the ground is still warm. So
right. Well, we haven't had a lot of snow or hail or anything like that here in New York, so we've had a very mild winter here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We've had it pretty rough.
I know. Yeah.
We've had flooding and mudslides, and it's honestly been one of the worst winters I've ever had here. So let's jump in. John, maybe give us some background on you and coming into Hawk, and just what you're up to and what you've been up to.
Yeah, well, it's been a great journey, about 5 months. So I'm new to the company, but I know the CEO very well. So we had started a software company a while back in the web content management space, and within the Bridgeline product suite, there's another CMS product. So I always found interesting what Ari, that other founder I was mentioning, was doing. And when I heard all the great things about HawkSearch, I knew less about on-site search when I started, but then I really started to understand, yes, it's search, obviously, but it's also about merchandising. It's about AI. It's about targeting. It's about recommendations, etc. So it's been a great journey for me. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation because, of course, we'll be going through some strategy things, but we're definitely going to focus on the product. You grabbed a lot of good screenshots and kind of concepts there. So I'm looking forward to really getting into some of the details underneath the covers. Great.
Well, let's jump into content. And yeah, I agree. And, the reason we're kind of, you may, if you're familiar with our content, you may notice, we can go pretty deep into different topics, but we're kind of staying a bit higher up because there's a lot of great research out there on B2B, actually on distributors in particular, and we're members of NAED, and there's a particular research report out there that shows how much e-commerce adoption is actually happening right now in B2B distribution, and the adoption is actually still fairly low. So I thought it'd be really good, to take time out and kind of talk about these things at a bit of a higher level versus diving, directly into something specific. So these are the topics that we put out there to talk about, and I like to translate this kind of stuff into as simple language as we can get. And these are the 4 things that John and I are gonna cover today, which is that on-site search, like a HawkSearch product, is really about customer conversion. It's a great customer conversion tool, right? We're also going to talk about data quality and how that not only we'll actually touch on several things around data quality, but of course, in the end, it improves the customer experience. We're going to talk about the infamous AI and machine learning that we're all hearing about, and how that that really allows customers to find products. And then we're going to look at analytics, right, and how we can look at more and more of the customer journey. As the customer engages and goes all the way through the buying journey. So let's jump in, and let's start though with a couple of more statistics. If anybody actually does want that report on e-commerce adoption in B2B distribution, just put a comment in there. Just say, yes, I want the report on B2B distribution adoption, and I'll get that to you. But I do want to talk about some other stats that we've run across that are interesting. And this kind of starts to put a point on some of the discussion today, right? Which is, well, that's great, that adoption and where it's at, but what about the customers? And these really speak to, what customers are looking for. And we all know this. This is that B2B buyers are heavily influenced by B2C experiences, right? They're used to going on Amazon. And so that's really kind of the gold standard. And these stats to me really reflect that, right? They reflect the fact that, a B2B buyer is obviously also a B2C consumer, and their expectations are really high, and if you look at some of these things, 83% of B2B buyers have moved online, right? That is not commensurate with the report that I've been mentioning of B2B distributors also being ready for digital. So there is a gap there. And 87% of B2B buyers would pay more for a better experience. And 90% will turn somewhere else. And so yes, those are a bit alarming. But those are the stats. And again, I know that's pretty brief, the document that we got that information from. So I could actually send folks a link to that as well if you want to see that. So, and then one more is that, the tools themselves, and that's what we're here to talk about is a tool, that you would adopt into your tech stack. But the tools themselves are not enough, and we're seeing that, right? 85% of B2B sale interactions occur in digital channels now, so that's pretty substantial. And look at that jump, John, from a couple of years ago. These are not small, so things are moving at a rapid clip, and that's really what we're here to talk about. So let's jump into the first topic, which is that on-site search as a customer conversion tool. right? And we've got a great video here. And John, I'm gonna start asking you questions here about we think of within the context of a search tool and why is it a conversion tool. I know you're excited to talk about this concept called instantly engage.
Yeah, for sure. And I do like, Jeremy, what you were just saying before, that yes, we're talking B2B, and obviously that's a big part of our customer base, but there is a lot that we can learn from the B2C experience in order to support that. And a lot of times when I'm talking to B2B customers, the first thing they're going to say is like, look, people know what they're searching for. They're going to put in the SKU. They're going to put in the name. They know what they need. And, that's what we want to support. And we are, Jeremy, going to talk about that a little bit later in the discussion. But there's other experiences before that you can take advantage of. And if you think of it like the entire process, first of all, your website is presenting a lot of information. I'm sure you have advertisements, messaging, etc. But when we really talk about engagement, when the person starts clicking into the search bar, that's when you have their attention. And once again, I'll just go back to the comment I said, which is like, yeah, that's where they're going to start putting in the SKU, or they copy and pasted from their email or what have you. And the point is, you still have a moment before they start pasting, before they start typing, to communicate with them. And we'll go through all the magic. You'll see what's going on here. When I click inside that search bar, it's immediately making recommendations here. What's popular on the site? What are the latest product releases? Or presenting back products that this person has searched for before. But it's even before they start typing. And it's even funny, internally, when we were developing this feature, we were kind of putting it under the category of autocomplete. So a lot of the concept was like, oh, it's a recommendation, meaning leverage what the person has searched for before, or what's popular on the site, or what we're promoting as part of the search experience. But it's part of autocomplete because, it's inside the search bar. It's not in the search results. You're still in the bar experience. But my point always was, they haven't even started typing yet. It's before autocomplete. And believe me, we'll talk about autocomplete too. So what this is highlighting is a couple of things. First of all, leveraging that machine learning and the AI that you were talking about before. How are people using the site? What are people searching for? What has this actual person who is actually on the site right now, what have they searched for before? What categories, what manufacturers, etc. And I will recommend to them, even before they start typing, a recommendation, what we call a recommendation. So the latest product from that manufacturer or what have you. So admittedly, this is kind of a B2C experience. This customer happens to be B2C. But once again, Jeremy, to your point, the B2C knowledge experience, they're slightly ahead in some of these technologies and some of these frameworks and philosophies and strategies. They can be applied to a B2B scenario. So it's one of those things too. You hear of a popular car or whatever it is, and then you see that car everywhere. And the way I have been lately is, now that I kind of know this idea of instant engage, as soon as you click on a search bar, you start seeing results. I go to every site now and I just click on the search bar to see, does anything happen when I click on the search bar? And it's just a great way to see kind of how advanced the thinking is for that company to engage with someone as soon as they click on the search bar. Anyway, that was a long, long
no, it's good
there, Jeremy. But I'm super excited about this feature and this capability.
Yeah, well, let's contrast it to autocomplete. It may seem like a nuance, but I mean, when it comes to customer experience, the power is in the nuance. I mean, every moment, of a buyer's experience matters.
For sure. And that's why it does play so well. And you're going to have both of these scenarios in the same search bar experience. So yes, I hope people would want to engage with that instant engage process. But regardless, the next part, to your point, Jeremy, is start making those recommendations right away. And this is also that opportunity, because you're obviously seeing in the animated GIF here that it's making corrections as you're doing your typing. And there's a lot of capabilities in our platform around things like, did you mean? So maybe you spelled it wrong, or you didn't put in all of the right aspects of a SKU, for example, and the system is automatically changing and adjusting what it's recommending as you're doing that typing. And I still think this experience is so powerful because we're going to get to the search results, make no mistake. But even before you get to those search results, to be able to apply AI, machine learning up front, even while you're still kind of thinking through what you're putting in there or what you copy and pasted before seeing the entire page come back, is key. And I know you've been bringing up multiple times in this conversation already the idea of conversion. We want people to click on these links and get straight into the product page, continue either to e-commerce, add it, for example, to your shopping cart, what have you. Like, this is, you're still at a prime experience for the user as they're engaging with you, even before you get to the search results page.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, I mean, think about it. I mean, you're making the customer's experience better, right? If you can actually show them what they're looking for, literally in the search bar, because you're bypassing a whole link, that page that they wouldn't have to go to then get to it. And that's what buyers are looking for.
For sure.
So then beyond that, right, like you said, we're going to get into the search result itself. Beyond that, there's a lot of stuff you can do once you do hit that search page, and I wanted to have you talk about some of these cool features that are available in any in a search results page.
Sure. And it's always going to be a collaboration. And I mean a collaboration between the folks on your team, the merchandising people, the people that are figuring out what are the appropriate synonyms that are related to you, and the AI. So the AI is going to try to make these adjustments and try to figure out, did you mean spell checks? And for example, look at what other people are clicking on when they search for the same thing. So the way that I like to look at it is that collaboration between folks on your side who are tuning the results and what you want to make matches for what people are searching for example, and what the AI is doing. And that AI, of course, is leveraging what the community is doing. So the wisdom of crowds is a term you'll often hear. So some of the relevancy is coming from your team and your understanding and your expertise, and some of it's coming from the actual activity that's going on in the site. I'll tell you one thing, and Jeremy, you're very close to this, that we're approaching from a product perspective, is to package these tuning settings per industry. Are you in electrical? Are you in plumbing? What is the specific industry? Because needless to say, the list of synonyms, the list of keyword replacements, etc., are specific to each one. And we're going to get into even some more of the sophisticated smart search capabilities, which we'll get to in a moment. The point is, though, they're also particular to each industry. So what we want to do is give as many kind of general purpose tools as possible in the platform itself, but then come out with packages on top of that that say, here's what we have seen across all the customers and our experience, et cetera, that are very particular to each one of your industries.
Yeah. Yeah. Now this is an interesting one. Let's talk about this. I've actually seen some aha moments when we're talking to new customers, because everything you're talking about means, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, that this search product understands the products. This search tool understands the products really, really well, right? And we also understand users' behaviors. So if we understand all that, does that mean we can actually control other aspects of the website better, perhaps, than you can?
For sure. And that's why we had all this conversation around the search bar and autocomplete and things like that. We think that's a super powerful and important feature, but make no mistake, in the end, there are going to be significant pages with lists of products that are sorted with facets and let people drill down. So leveraging all of that understanding of how people are searching to also drive the quote unquote page, the landing page, the product category page, is as valuable as we were saying before within the search bar experience. But the second thing that you said, Jeremy, is so important here, which is either a visibility rule. So we've kind of been talking more high level keyword replacements and things like that, but more of a rule. So that rule, or sometimes what we refer to as a visitor target, is really, once again, kind of thinking a little bit of the way that the B2C world works, which is I have a segment, and that segment of visitors that meet certain parameters, or it could just even be down to an individual customer, should see different content than someone else would see, for example. So maybe the example in the B2C world would be, we were kind of joking, I'm on the East Coast, a little bit colder in New England, you're on the West Coast, typically warmer. In the B2C world, if I, meaning coming into the website from New England, search for coat, I would most likely see heavier coats. And if you search for coat, Jeremy, you're going to see lighter weight coats, most likely, and depending on the time of year, what have you. This works also within different types of products. If you're searching for certain electrical wiring or insulation, what have you, maybe these are dependent on where you're from, what you've ordered before, what have you. So the point is applying these types of either segmentation concepts or more kind of hardcore visibility rules is a great way to, once again, add some logic on top of all of the data that's sitting in your product catalog.
Yeah. I feel like this is just another aspect of that, right? And I feel like we're peeling back the onion here as to how far can a tool like this go once it starts to understand your products and your customers and their behavior.
Yeah, even down to the individual. So the last time that person was in there, where did they click within the navigation? So then the next time they come in, sort according to the way that this person likes to navigate through the site. So I like it. It could just be more general purpose, how people are in general using the site, but the sort it could also be broken down to that actual individual.
Yeah. And then wrapping up this section, this is always a fun one to end on because it's kind of, it's a pretty neat tool, right? And it's certainly B2C oriented, right? I mean, it's certainly taking what came out of B2C and putting it into the B2B world. But as you can see from this alone, you've really got to understand that product and all of its attributes to be able to do something like a compare.
For sure. And maybe just one other aspect of this, because up to this point, we've been talking kind of conceptually around, okay, how's the data organized? How am I leveraging AI, what have you, to help me find the right product? But one thing just to highlight, needless to say, with HawkSearch is there are built-in components on the display side, obviously. And there are some defaults that you start with, but one of those defaults that we have built into the framework is indeed an interface like this. And when you're defining, for example, up front, what are your fields and what are you indexing, et cetera, you just say this one is comparable and it should be shown in the compare results. So this system takes care of a lot on the front end with the website and the way it works to support this type of functionality.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Well, we're moving right along here. This is great. And we're into our second area, which is the data quality, which we've obviously touched on several times here. Is the quality of the data is going to help drive a lot of these experiences that we literally just walked through. So let's dig in and give some context around what is data quality. And here, these are some great examples of what we mean by, data quality.
Yeah, it's funny because, as I mentioned, I'm relatively new to some of the concepts, and I do remember having some of these internal conversations around data quality and thinking, boy, I really don't want to offend people by saying they have a data quality problem. And, for the most part, the feedback was, no, you can be pretty upfront. Everyone is challenged with these data quality issues. Namely, I have multiple supply feeds that are coming into my system, partners, other manufacturers, et cetera. And unfortunately, they're just not normalized. And getting a little bit some of the technical conversation, but they're just not. So I have a big issue. And no, we were talking before about, well, do I just do a synonym for all these? And I try to say like this synonym is that, but these really aren't synonyms. So like, how do I address that I have different formats of the way the content is coming in, the different ways that I'm naming individual fields, but it's really all the same thing, or even down to the concept that GRN is really green in this example here, or in some cases, people are using the slash within our complex SKU. In other cases, it's a dash. And sometimes people, like before we had a catalog that didn't have any of those in there. And like, how do I make it easy for people to find? And in the past, people had done that through, as I said, relatively complicated and cumbersome synonyms to try to mask some of that data quality issue. And what we have is what we refer to overall as smart search, which really gets to underlying rules. And not to get into all the gory details, but even think of it like a regular expression that says, I'm going to analyze all of the information that I'm looking at here. And in the index, so this is indexable, I'm going to store all of those. So regardless of the order someone put something in, or whether they do or don't include a dash or a slash or what have you, I'm going to return the results, whether that's in the autocomplete, whether that's in my search results, what have you.
Yeah. And in particular, we're calling out here and a unit of measure, because in B2B distribution, that is obviously a big deal.
This is the biggest one, because exactly as you can see right here, it comes in as half a foot. Other people put in 6 inches. Other people use, obviously the double quote. And this is why I was saying, like, in some cases, people are trying to leverage synonyms back in the day, but that's not necessarily the way you'd want to approach this. It's better if you approach it more in a sophisticated way, where it's a rule that kind of understands a lot of these unit of measure. So as I was kind of saying before, sometimes we're packaging this as part of an industry accelerator. That's the way we kind of go to market with these industry specific packages. And they include these unit of measure conversions that are particular for different types of industries, electrical obviously being different than plumbing, for example. So you get the best of both worlds. Some of it is just configurable underneath the covers. In other cases, we're actually providing a set of these rules that will be inserted by our services team.
Yeah. And you touched on this, right? Which, and we've looked at this. I mean, even coming back, into something like this, if you want to offer this kind of experience, you really also need to think about, the data feed, where is it coming from? And do you need to enrich the data as it comes into our system so that we can think about other experiences other than you're offering today?
Absolutely. And this goes once again to, I have multiple feeds. They're all coming in different directions, and or you may need to split the feed. So I get one feed in and I may need to send it to multiple indexes. We're doing a project now where there are 750 separate indexes, all coming from 6 individual feeds. So some of the feeds are literally split into hundreds of different indexes, each with their own rules, each with their own regular expressions, as I was getting to the details there, synonyms, etc. So it's very much a single source coming in, but then allowing each one of the profit centers, each one of those businesses to apply their own rules on top of a common index.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. No, that's good information about data. It's a huge topic. Every time we talk to somebody new, it's obviously a huge topic. So the next, John, I got a challenge for you on this next section here. We're going to talk about AI, but you cannot say ChatGPT. That's the only time we're going to say that in this webinar. so let's jump into talking about AI and machine learning.
How about Jasper? Am I allowed to say Jasper?
OpenAI. I'll say OpenAI.
Okay. Yeah.
So, how is search using machine learning and AI? We're already doing it today, and I know we're excited to dive in even deeper. But let's jump in and kind of bring this down to earth, because I personally am not crazy. What's that?
Well, I was going to say this is that collaboration approach, and there's always going to be the smart marketing people and the smart merchandising people that say, like, look, this is what I want to quote unquote recommend, right? These are our top products. This is what we think is going to be relevant. And we're never taking away that ability to just specify this is what we want to highlight. But as we were saying before, there's a lot of data that's inside what we're capturing. We have a tracking API that's tracking this activity that we can then machine learn against. And if we're learning as people are, where are they clicking in the search results? And we were kind of talking about before, what facets are they using the most? That can influence what you recommend. So in a lot of our recommendations, and I literally mean a recommendation, which is a list of products. So what you're seeing here is going into HawkSearch and grabbing the idea of a recommendation and putting it into a little snippet. It just happens to be in WordPress. I have a lot of WordPress experience, but the point is what's driving that recommendation, that list of products, is not per se what I may have chosen as a marketing person, although by the way, I may have. But if I want to say, well, wait a second, why don't I let the system recommend what's relevant? And what I just love about this example is, let's say that piece of content, it's a blog post, it's a landing page, it's whatever, it's sitting out there a long time. This goes a little bit to the comment we were saying before on I search for jacket, and you're going to get a lighter weight jacket than I would get, for example, with this visitor target. What I love about this is the request back to HawkSearch is always dynamic. Even if someone happens to do a search and they land on that page, 6 months from now, and something is very different or what have you, they're still getting the recommendation back dynamically. Like, what's the latest activity? What's the latest, machine learning result? It's not static. I'm not literally putting a list here. I'm just putting a rule here. And we have a large number of those rules, as you'll see in one of the next slides.
Yeah. And the bottom line is customer experience and conversion, right? And helping that happen, right? And really, if you look at these 3 bullets, providing the most relevant, products with less clicks to find it, with better results and personalization. I mean, it doesn't get more specific than that when it comes to helping customers find what they want and convert.
For sure. And actually, Jeremy, just go back one more second. And this is maybe a conversation for another day, but you could imagine where we're going here is, well, I don't want to per se put one recommendation there. I want to put 2, I want to put 3. And when you hear about A/B testing and experimentation, we'll get a little bit more into this. Like, this is the mechanism for doing it. I don't want to test 1, I want to test 3 and see which one performs the best. And since we have a lot of these experiences, we don't have to get into all the details of how these are built. You can see this is not a developer putting this in here. This is a person inside of a blog. Of course, this would be in your CMS. This would be in your e-commerce tool. It's quite simple to embed a lot of these experiences we've been talking about.
Yeah. Developers want to develop and marketers want to merchandise.
Exactly. Maybe just the other thing to highlight here is, of course, we're interested in general from a business perspective around automation. And when I talk about collaboration, there's a bit of an automation piece there, is because either I can have an individual monitor this stuff, see what's doing well, et cetera. And of course, that will always continue. But I sure like the idea of automating these processes, let the system learn, let the system analyze, let the system track what's going on and make those recommendations, et cetera. And then we're tracking it. So for me, our whole AI strategy and what we're doing with it is really an automation strategy. And those are the 2 kind of aspects that a business, the B2B world in particular, is going to look at. Because on the one hand, I want the conversions, I want to be building these experiences, but there's going to be budget constraints. If there's a way we can automate some of our manual processes, then you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Well, you said something key on the last slide, which is we're tracking a lot of information, right? So we're housing all this information, and then we can use it.
Yeah, for sure. And this was something interesting to me when I started as well. Because on the one hand, this is kind of what we were saying, like, well, we have a lot of smart marketing people and we know what to do, which, got it, perfect, keep doing that. But like, let the system let the AI platform, the machine learning, make these recommendations. So what we've decided as a product strategy is to say, let us build more recipes for you, more strategies for you. And that's what we've been doing. It's still leveraging the same framework, the same machine learning, et cetera, but just to help the user say, look, we're adding more of these examples. Some are straightforward, what's trending, what's hot now, that type of thing. Some are going to be common, but we get more and more creative, and we provide the multiple flavors. Do you want it to be heavily influenced by what people are clicking on from recommendations, or what from people are clicking on from search results? Do you want it to be personalized, so it's based on what I clicked in the search results, as opposed to more of the wisdom of crowd, so to speak, of the search results? So our approach has been, up to this point, is just give more and more menu options to select. Look, here's a new idea to think about it. Because on the one hand, if you want to do stuff yourself, great. But we have a lot of expertise in this. We've been through these types of scenarios before. We think it's helpful to package those as strategies. And you just pick which strategy would you like to leverage for this recommendation?
No, I love it. I mean, again, it's tough. It's intimidating going into a meeting to talk to somebody about AI and machine learning. But when you package it like this and make it real and tangible, like, no, this is what I'm talking about. Yes, there's machine learning that's actually working this, but let's talk about what it's actually doing. It's putting something on the website that actually recommends products in a particular way to your customers. I just think that it's a much easier conversation, when you bring this up with a customer and you walk through, let's look at these for you, than just talking about AI and machine learning in general.
And the only thing to add there, we're going to get into it right here with the analytics, but just to kind of pull it all together, I would always make the case that one of the most important data points for this analysis and what's going on is what people are searching for, because they're just being so explicit with what they want and need. And you're getting 2 bites at the apple. Number one, with put in the keyword search, and then number 2, what they actually clicked on. Like, these are 2 really important pieces of information. Now, if I could analyze it and kind of track what's going on and make these recommendations, it really becomes compelling.
Yeah.
But and you bring up right now, analyze it.
You bring up a good point, though, in that, as a nugget and a takeaway, anybody here, if you're not familiar with how many of your users are actually engaging with search, I mean, if you think about it, somebody who's engaging with your search is already more engaged in your website, because they're actually interacting with it versus just simply browsing it. And we're talking about taking an engaged audience and delivering an even better experience to that audience. But as a takeaway, if you're not familiar with your analytics, you could ask somebody on your marketing team or your dev team to just literally go into Google Analytics and go and see if you're tracking. You should be already tracking the difference between, you can see the traffic on your website that is actually using your search versus not. And what we're able to do is go in and isolate and say, okay, this amount of traffic is actually using search. We're actually gonna increase the conversion on that traffic. But that is some of the most valuable traffic you have, and you really should know. If you don't, again, put a comment and I'll shoot you instructions on how to go find that in Google Analytics, because it's great information to have. So we've mentioned analytics several times, and again, I'll mention it again. We are tracking. A tool like this is tracking so much information. We learn every day, John. Oh, we're tracking that. Maybe we should look at this kind of report, right? So I know we learn that a lot. But as we're kind of getting towards the end here, so I wanted to take a moment and kind of go up a level and talk to everybody about our overall strategy as we engage with somebody, right? And it kind of looks like this, a typical funnel that we've identified as really, these are the 3 biggest drivers to your revenue, right? We call this your revenue model, right? Because if you're not getting enough traffic to your site, that's the first step. Once you get that traffic, you then need to convert it, right? Which is everything we've been talking about here. And along that customer journey, which they're right towards the middle to the end of the journey, you also have the opportunity to help that customer increase the size of their order or their AOV or average order value, so that there's more things in the cart when they actually go to check out. And so this is kind of the journey we follow. And we're actually bringing that together. And John, we're going to talk about that for the last few minutes here. We're going to talk about how we're bringing these things all together in the HawkSearch product.
Yeah, so the first one here, I mentioned briefly before, we actually both work for Bridgeline. Bridgeline is a parent company of HawkSearch and other companies. WooRank is one of them. Jeremy, you're certainly very familiar with WooRank, which is, to that point, that first part of the funnel, like how do I get more traffic? And one of the ways, we're all familiar with SEO, to understand, looking at the site itself, the way it's structured, etc. If I can just make those improvements to help me with my optimization, I'll drive more traffic to the site. And we kind of always had this tool, I say always, after the acquisition of WooRank, but it wasn't embedded inside of HawkSearch. So when you were inside of HawkSearch, you didn't necessarily know what was going on inside, the SEO aspect of the site. So what we've been doing, it's kind of an internal strategy to cross-pollinate all of the tools within the Bridgeline product suite together. And this is one of those examples, giving a user, even inside of HawkSearch, a high-level overview of what WooRank says about the site itself. And then, of course, that learn more, clicking into WooRank and taking advantage of all the other capabilities. But this is a nice way to expose some of that high-level data. And yes, Jeremy, you're showing that my demo site does not have a good WooRank
Not a very
score.
good score. Not a very good score.
I got to work on it. I got to work on it. Just a demo site. It has an IP address in the URL. So so we're on the same page. But yeah.
I mentioned a minute ago Google Analytics, obviously a very important piece of all this. And one thing I like to say about WooRank, just so you know, this is the Hawk product, but this is a live report inside of Hawk from an SEO auditing tool. Our tool called WooRank. So this is literally accurate, and that's why John was pointing out it's not a very good score. It is literally tracking across about 75 different attributes that are related to SEO on the website, which of those passed, which could be improved, and which are actually just broke or they actually need fixing. And this is all according to SEO best practice and Google algorithms and things like that. And just one thing I want to comment is a lot of folks get a tool like WooRank confused with Google Analytics. It's like, well, I can just go into Google Analytics and see my traffic and things like that. And yes, of course you can. But this is an SEO auditing tool. It's literally looking at the things that ultimately drive that traffic. Google Analytics is a great tool, don't get me wrong, but it's really an artifact of what occurred, right? You're going in and seeing, okay, this happened. This is a product that's looking to the future to saying, if you want to get even more traffic, you have to fix these things. And again, that's why our overall, vision is drive traffic, boost conversion, increase AOV. That's why we embedded WooRank into HawkSearch, because like John said, we need to cross-pollinate and we need to help our customers drive traffic so that we can then use Hawk to boost the conversion from that traffic. So, and last but not least, again, an example of how we are tracking a tremendous amount of data. And as John came on here, John, so we happened to just release a new release called Bronco. And John, thanks to you, all I see is Broncos now as I drive down the road.
Exactly. And believe me, you'll be clicking on search bars to see if results come back right back.
So, but we just got a few minutes left here, and just tell us about this newest report that's come out in our Bronco release.
Yep. And it does leverage another product within the Bridgeline product suite. It's called eCommerce 360, or E360 for short. And traditionally, all this data we're talking about, et cetera, that HawkSearch generates, in many cases, users would say, yeah, I'll download it, I put it into my BI tool, what have you. But what we wanted to do in Bronco is two things. Number one, let's leverage another tool within the Bridgeline product suite, 360, which is very much driven by analytics coming out of Google and charts and graphs, et cetera. But then number two, really just provide out of the box more of the functionality that you expect from a BI tool, looking at more trend type data and setting the stage for the other type of experimentation and analysis we were talking about before, A/B testing. Which one of my experiments is performing better? So it's kind of two-pronged. Number one, leverage these other tools like E360. And number two, really start adding more of these sophisticated analytics tools built into to the solution.
Awesome. This is fantastic, and that is the end of the show today. And you would think we had actually planned this because we're dead on here on time. So, and I love giving people time back in their day. So I want to respect that. But John, thank you so much for coming on. This is incredible. We did have some questions come through. We did have some questions, and I'll respond to those afterwards. But again, I want to say thanks to everybody. John, thank you. This was really great information, great insights. I hope everybody had some great takeaways, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye, Jeremy.